Welcome back to my channel. Celeb Buzz, please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. He was huge. Lucille Ball tells everything in her book. Lucille Ball was born on August 6, 1911 in Jamestown, New York, a small town in the west part of the state. The town was known for hardworking people and close families. She was the first kid of Henry Ball, who worked hard fixing phone lines for the Bell Phone Company, and Desiree Hunt, a strong woman who came from French, Irish, and English family. Lucille grew up without much money, but she would later change her poor beginnings into a story about going from poor to rich that millions of people would love. She had one brother, Fred Ball, who was younger than her. She stayed close to him all her life. Something very sad happened to the young family in 1915 when Lucille was only 3 years old. Her dad, Henry, got very sick with a bad sickness called typhoid fever. This sickness was much more common back then because people didn't have clean water and good doctors. When he died, it left the family very sad and with no money. Lucille never forgot that scary day. She remembered very clearly how a bird got stuck inside their house. This moment made her afraid of birds for the rest of her life. This scary time was not just about losing her dad, but also the start of a time when things were not stable and she didn't know what would happen next. This would shape her early years. After Henry Ball died, Desiree Hunt made the hard choice to move herself and her two kids back to her parents' house in Celeron, New York, a small town just outside of Jamestown. Lucille's grandparents on her mom's side gave them a place to live, but life was still very hard. Her mom took on very tough factory jobs to take care of the family. She often worked long hours for very little money. In 1919, trying to make life better, Desiree married Edward Peterson. But this marriage brought more problems. Edward and Desiree moved away to look for better jobs, but they didn't take Lucille and Fred with them. Instead, the kids were left with Edward Peterson's parents. These were strict people from Sweden who had very old-fashioned ideas about how kids should act. Life with the Peterson grandparents was very hard and cold. The house had very strict rules and no love or hugs. This made Lucille feel like no one understood her and like she was trapped. She started to fight against the rules and became bold and playful. This would help her later when she did comedy, but it caused problems when she was growing up. Her spirit and imagination didn't fit with the strict things they expected from her. She started to escape into her own world of pretending and make-believe. This planted the early seeds of her future in entertainment. Another life-changing thing happened in 1927 when Lucille was 16 years old. A terrible accident with a neighbor boy left a mark on the family that would never go away. Fred Ball, her younger brother, had been playing with a gun when it went off by accident. The bullet hit the boy and made him unable to walk. Even though Fred was still just a kid, this led to an expensive court case against the Ball family. Their grandfather couldn't afford to pay the money they owed, so he had to sell his house to pay for it. This terrible event made the family even more poor and sad. It left a shadow of guilt and sadness hanging over them. Even with all these problems, Lucille still wanted to follow her dreams. That same year, in 1927, she signed up for the famous John Murray Anderson School for Drama in New York City. This was her first real step toward becoming a performer. But her time there was not encouraging. One of her classmates was the future movie star Bette Davis, whose acting talent was much better than everyone else's. Lucille, on the other hand, was awkward and not sure of herself on stage. Her teachers didn't think she was very good and even told her mother that spending money on Lucille's acting lessons was a waste of time and money. This experience was very disappointing, but it didn't kill her dream. Instead, it made her want to succeed even more, but in her own way. By 1928, after being rejected many times, Lucille changed herself completely. She took the stage name Diane Belmont and got into fashion modeling. She found work as a model for the famous designer Hattie Carnegie. Hattie's customers were some of New York's richest women. With her beautiful red hair, though she dyed it blonde at the time, and her tall, graceful body, Lucille started building a career in the fashion world. Just when she was starting to do well, life threw her another problem. She got rheumatic fever, a serious sickness that kept her in bed for almost 2 years. This stopped her career just when it was starting to grow. After getting better for a long time, Lucille went back to modeling in 1932. She worked with Hattie Carnegie again and slowly got her confidence back. Around the same time, she became the Chesterfield cigarette girl. This job gave her fame and put her picture on advertising signs across the country. These early successes brought back her dream of acting. With strong determination, she went to Hollywood in 1933 to try to make movies. Her first try at making movies was small. She started as a contract player for RKO Pictures. She appeared as a chorus girl or in small parts in different low-budget films. Though she never became a big star in these early years, she was always there and reliable. Her ability to play different roles and her professional work on set earned her the nickname Queen of the Bees. This was because she starred in many B movies. Over time, her acting got better and her funny instincts started to show. Some important films from this time include The Three Musketeers in 1935, Stage Door in 1937, where she acted with Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers, Room Service in 1938 with the Marx Brothers, Too Many Girls in 1940, and The Big Street in 1942, where she got great reviews for her dramatic role opposite Henry Fonda. Lucille's career changed a lot when her husband, Cuban band leader and actor Desi Arnaz, told her to try radio. This suggestion led to her starring role in the CBS radio comedy My Favorite Husband, which ran successfully from 1948 to 1951. Her perfect timing and charming voice captured listeners, and the show became a huge hit. Seeing her talent and how much people liked her, CBS wanted to make the radio show into a TV show. The CEO said yes, but with one rule that couldn't be changed. Her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz, had to play her husband on TV too, even though the network didn't want this at first, mainly because they were worried about the mixed marriage and Desi's accent. Lucille didn't give up. Together, Lucille and Desi started Desilu Productions, which would become one of the most important and creative production companies in TV history. Their work together created I Love Lucy, which started in October 1951. The show changed television by being the first to use 3 cameras in front of a live audience. It also started reruns and syndication. Its success was amazing. People all across America fell in love with the crazy lovable Lucy Ricardo. She was a housewife who always dreamed of being famous and always got herself into funny trouble. The chemistry between Lucille and Desi was electric, and the show became very popular. It dominated TV ratings throughout its run. It became a cultural phenomenon and set the gold standard for sitcoms, inspiring many generations of TV creators. After I Love Lucy ended in 1957, Lucille kept following her passion for performing. She appeared in many TV specials and sitcoms like The Lucy Show and Here's Lucy. She even went back to her theater roots by acting in Broadway musicals. Though her later career didn't reach the amazing heights of I Love Lucy, she stayed a beloved figure in American entertainment. In 1986, she tried one final return to television with the sitcom Life with Lucy. In this show, she played a lively grandmother. However, the show failed to connect with modern audiences and was canceled after just a few episodes. In 1940, Lucille Ball's life changed dramatically when she met a charming and talented Cuban bandleader named Desi Arnaz. They met while filming the RKO musical comedy Dance Girl Dance, where she had a supporting role. Although the film itself wasn't very successful and was considered a B-grade movie, its impact on her personal life was huge. Desi, full of charm and fiery energy, immediately caught Lucille's attention with his wit, confidence, and vibrant Latin personality. Despite their very different backgrounds, Lucille being a small-town girl from Jamestown, New York, and Desi being a flashy musician from Santiago, Cuba, their chemistry was undeniable. Their quick romance grew fast, and by November 30th, 1940, just a few months after meeting, they eloped and married in Greenwich, Connecticut. Their marriage was passionate and deeply loving, though it would also be filled with problems and challenges that matched the intensity of their love. The early years of their marriage were especially hard because of their conflicting work schedules and the demands of Lucille's growing career in Hollywood. As an actress determined to get bigger roles, she was often away traveling for film shoots and publicity events. Desi, meanwhile, was busy touring the country with his band, the Desi Arnaz Orchestra, which had become a popular act during World War II. Being apart so much, fueled by professional ambition and the instability of show business, made it hard to build a normal home life. In 1944, after several years of these tensions and rumors of Desi cheating, Lucille reached a breaking point and filed for divorce. However, despite the legal action, both still had deep feelings for each other. They got back together not long after, determined to find a way to make their relationship work. This reunion marked the beginning of a new chapter in their marriage. This would later lead to their groundbreaking television collaboration. Lucille's desire to start a family added another layer of emotional complexity to her life. She went through the heartache of 3 miscarriages in 1942, in 1949, and again in 1950. Each loss was a painful blow that she kept private while maintaining her public image as a comedic icon. The repeated tragedies took a toll on her both physically and emotionally, especially as she balanced the pressures of fame with her longing for motherhood. Her perseverance, however, was eventually rewarded. In 1951, at the age of 40, which was considered pretty old for having babies at that time, she finally gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Lucy Desiree Arnaz. The birth was a joyous milestone, not only for the couple, but also for their fans. Lucille was starring in I Love Lucy at the same time, a show that would change American television forever. Just 2 years later, on January 19th, 1953, Lucille gave birth to their second child, Desi Arnaz Jr. The arrival of their children happened at the same time as the peak of their television success. This created a sense of shared triumph between their private and public lives. Despite looking like a perfect family and professional partnership on the outside, the problems in Lucille and Desi's marriage continued to grow behind the scenes. As the demands of running Desilu Productions, a company they started together, got stronger, so did the emotional distance between them. Desi's ongoing struggles with drinking and his alleged affairs with other women only made the problems worse. After 2 decades of marriage filled with love, problems, and groundbreaking work together, Lucille made the painful decision to file for divorce once again. This time it was final. In 1960, their marriage officially ended. Looking back on their time together, Lucille later described their relationship as both deeply romantic and very difficult. She said their years together were like a nightmare at times, showing how much emotional pain it had caused her, yet she never stopped loving Desi, calling him the great love of my life in later interviews. This was a touching acknowledgement of the complex bond they shared. A year after her divorce in 1961, Lucille found love and companionship once more when she married Gary Morton. He was a younger stand-up comedian who appreciated and respected her for who she was, both as a woman and as a performer. Gary was not part of the Hollywood elite like Desi, and perhaps that's what brought Lucille a greater sense of peace in her later years. Their marriage was stable, loving, and lasted a long time. Gary supported Lucille's ongoing work in television and theater. He stood by her as she became the first woman to run a major television studio. The couple remained devoted to each other until Lucille's death in 1989. Their relationship, though quieter and less dramatic than her first marriage, gave Lucille the emotional security and mutual respect she had long sought. In the pages of her memoir, Lucille Ball, America's beloved redhead and the queen of sitcoms, was never one to shy away from being honest. Though many of her memories were wrapped in humor and grace, there were moments when she let the mask fall. She revealed flashes of deep emotion, vulnerability, and occasionally shocking honesty. One such moment came when she described her long-ago encounter with Henry Fonda. He was the tall, thoughtful actor known for his quiet dignity and intense screen presence. Lucille's memory of Henry Fonda was not just a casual mention or a quick reference. It was vivid, sensual, and filled with a mixture of admiration, surprise, and old Hollywood allure. In her words, he was massive. This was a term that she admitted had multiple meanings. Yes, there was his physical height, tall, lean, commanding, but there was more to it than just how tall he was. According to Lucille, there was a gravity to Fonda, a force that seemed to come from his very being. In every room he entered, even when he wasn't trying, he captured attention. It wasn't just about being a star. It was something basic, something masculine in the most primal sense. Lucille met Henry Fonda in the late 1930s during her early years in Hollywood. This was before the world came to know her as the zany Lucy Ricardo. She had been cast in B-movies and small parts, struggling to prove herself in an industry where looks mattered as much, if not more, than talent. Fonda, meanwhile, was already a rising star. He was earning praise for his emotionally intense roles in films like The Farmer Takes a Wife and Young Mr. Lincoln. Their circles often overlapped at studio events and private industry dinners. She remembered being captivated not just by his face, which she called sculpted like a Michelangelo statue, but by his quiet confidence and the intense focus in his pale, penetrating eyes. It was during one of those famous Hollywood parties hosted by a prominent producer in the Hills that Lucille and Henry reportedly had their first real conversation. He didn't talk much, she wrote, but when he did, It felt like thunder in a canyon. There was no small talk, no idle chatter. Fonda was deeply philosophical, almost brooding. Lucille, with her razor-sharp wit and larger-than-life personality, found the contrast intoxicating. She confessed that there was an instant spark between them. This was a flicker that at the time neither of them pursued very far. Both were involved with other people. Both were trying to stay focused on their careers. But the memory of their brief flirtation stayed with Lucille for decades. In her memoir, she allowed herself to reminisce about one particular moment. It was a slow, smoky dance on a patio under the stars when he held her close. His frame towered over hers, and for a moment, she felt protected, feminine, and completely seen. That night, she said, "I understood why women fell in love with him and why they kept falling." Then came the comment that made headlines. He was massive in presence and intensity, and yes, in other ways too. With a wink in her tone and just enough mystery to leave readers wondering, Lucille didn't go into more detail beyond that sentence, but the hint was enough to stir gossip and fuel the imagination of readers and fans alike. What made this confession so powerful was not just the potential romantic or physical implication, it was how it revealed Lucille's own longing, even years later, to connect with something deep and magnetic. It wasn't about a conquest or a scandal, it was about recognizing in Henry Fonda a kind of force that shaped her perception of men, strength, and sensuality. As a woman who had known many of Hollywood's greatest legends, Desi Arnaz, Clark Gable, Orson Welles, and more, Lucille Ball's singling out of Henry Fonda as uniquely massive was both surprising and telling. In an industry filled with flashiness, Fonda's stillness, his intensity, and his quietly overwhelming energy made an unforgettable impression. Though nothing lasting ever developed between the two, Lucille Ball carried that memory with her. It wasn't as a lost opportunity, but as a moment of real, raw humanity. It was a reminder that even in the glittering unreality of Hollywood, there are moments that felt entirely beautifully real. On April 26, 1989, Ball complained of severe back pains and lost consciousness shortly after her heart surgery for aortic rupture. She died soon after. Later, it was confirmed that it happened due to another aortic rupture in abdominal area unrelated to previous surgery.